Hello, everybody, and welcome to Deep Dive Zone, a Sonic the Hedgehog reread series for fans of all shapes and sizes. As usual, I'm your host, Devin, joined by my comrades, Lauren and Bruce, and today we are talking about the next 5 issues of Archie's Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes, we are.
Starting off with number 11 here, which I just want to draw attention to this cover because, it has this joke where Robotnik's attacking a cardboard cutout of Sonic. That does not look like Sonic at all.
I didn't realize that's what that was, because I don't really look at the covers. But
He looks like a happy little, Santa elf.
Kind of, yeah.
It's more convincing when it's colored.
Yeah, maybe. Or if we're not just seeing the back of it.
I guess.
Right.
It doesn't do a lot to help the impression of Robotnik being a little bit dim-witted, though.
That's true.
Well, that's the idea. He's the classic paradoxical genius scientist villain that's Saturday morning cartoon syndrome, also an idiot.
True.
Well, I don't have a good segue, so let's talk about our first story of the night. The Good, the Bad, and the Hedgehog, which is drawn by Dave Monack, and the reason that I'm saying his name first is because it was written by Mike Kantarovich and Ken Penders.
Oh boy.
You're saying that as if the name is significant somehow.
I wonder.
Okay, so we're not gonna go off on too much of a tangent here, but if you know anything about Archie Sonic, you know the name Ken Penders from someplace. He is a contentious figure within the Sonic fandom, which is a very nice way of saying people hate this man. He is primarily known for 3 things. 1, his bad, often creepy-looking artwork. 2, his series of lawsuits that doomed many Sonic the Hedgehog characters in the comics. And 3, his awful, awful Twitter tweets and just his terrible, just petty behavior on Twitter.com. And we're gonna talk about all that stuff, but for tonight, he is just a guy who knew a guy and landed a writing position on a children's comic book series. And so this story is not extremely different from Gallagher or DeCesare, I would say.
Not particularly.
The summary for this one I've written is, when taking a shortcut to the battlefield with Robotnik, Sonic stumbles into an alternate dimension where Robotnik is an honest man, but the freedom fighters are evil.
So, a bit of a personal story here. The first exposure I had to the Sonic Archie comics was Sonic Archives Volume 6, which is the return of the evil Sonic gang and freedom fighters that fight freedom. I love that, by the way. And so I was like, what the heck are these characters doing in these comics? And only later did I read this story, the origin story. So these characters have a bit of a special significance to me. Also, I'm a huge fan of evil versions of the heroes in any story.
It can be a very fun writing opportunity.
You like Spock from the Beard universe.
Right.
But yeah, we've got some concepts introduced here that'll go on for a while. Specifically, the cosmic interstate, which Sonic just so they're like, oh, we gotta go fight Robotnik, and Sonic's like, oh, I gotta get over there quickly, and so he's just like, oh, hey, I know a shortcut here. I'll just warp through this magic time portal that can take me anywhere in the multiverse.
Yeah, it's incredibly easy interdimensional travel. Very nonchalant.
At what point, if anybody but Sonic knows about this, which maybe they do, but I feel like you could have done a good bit where Antoine's like, can't we just run away to a universe that doesn't have Robotnik?
He would say something like that, wouldn't he?
I can understand that, thinking like that also.
They will get more into this later. So I've got to give them credit. The writers realized that, oh yes, giant interdimensional highway. I think that would cause more things to happen. And they do later on, to their credit.
Yes, for better and worse. Anyway, so yeah, Sonic goes to the reverse universe, and Robotnik is a veterinarian, which is a little weird in this comic because wouldn't you just be a doctor then?
I don't think about such things too hard.
Honestly, that's probably a good idea.
What I do think about is the fact that there's like this big old city that's branded with Robotnik's face in the evil universe. What's up with that if he's the good guy?
Yeah, actually, it's still polluting the skies and stuff. Did the anti-freedom fighters build it and just put Robotnik on it to make him angry?
It's nice pollution.
Well, I don't remember it being explained later either, unless it's explained really later.
No, they never talk about that. They just retcon it out of existence.
Yeah, that might have just been like an art error.
So after that, we finally get Sonic versus Sonic. We've got evil Sonic. He is Sonic in a leather jacket and sunglasses.
I find it interesting that evil Sonic seems to be fully aware of parallel universes already, whereas regular Sonic is surprised to see this place.
Yeah, where has evil Sonic been? Maybe that's how he got the resources to beat Robotnik. Maybe only this evil Sonic got bad, and he just stole other evil versions of the other characters from other timelines.
Oh my god,
The big old evil character alliance.
I kind of like that theory actually.
Yeah. I ordered all the Sonics from most evil to least evil. Yeah, but what's weird to me is not just that he has knowledge of alternate universes, but he refers to himself as an alternate.
Yeah, so I was pretty sure that was just the writers not really realizing how weird that comes off from Evil Sonic's mouth. But you could also choose to dig into that and think about, what does that mean? Does he have like an inferiority complex where he thinks he's not good enough to be called like the real Sonic or something?
So it's like Liquid Snake.
Okay, so the thing is, Lauren, I didn't consider that, but when you said that, I realized, yes, that is canon.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. As for the actual, like, battle, it's like we get a lot of evil Sonic explaining things. This is going to be a recurring thing in Penders' story, is big exposition scenes, which, it's hard to know how much of this should be attributed to who, because I don't know anything about the idiosyncrasies of Mike Kantrovich. We know nothing about this man. He only ever wrote with Penders, and Penders only ever wrote with him, and it's like the stories that Penders writes with Kantrovich and on his own are nigh identical. I have no idea what his input was.
Are we sure he's even a real person?
There is a photo of him. There is exactly one photo of him, and I think he did some work on some Marvel series.
Okay, because my next theory was going to be that that's just a name that Kenders created to make it seem like there's someone writing alongside him on some of his issues.
Well, that's not the worst conspiracy theory concerning Ken Penders that you could make up, so.
Are there more conspiracy theories concerning him?
So okay, again, we're not going to get too much into this.
Right.
I don't like Ken Penders. I think that he's said and done some awful things.
I think it's safe to say most people don't like him.
But people make shit up about Penders that is absolutely wild.
Gotcha. I knew that because you've told me about that shit.
Yeah. Anyway.
Getting back to the story at hand.
Yeah.
So this all kicks off because Sonic needs to help the Freedom Fighters. I find it kind of pathetic. The Freedom Fighters, while Sonic is stuck in an alternate universe, just sit around and do absolutely nothing. Like they're helpless.
Why
whenever
exactly
Poochie's not on screen. If they really don't know about the alternate universes, I don't know what they would do if they couldn't find him anywhere, but they're just sitting at the same place. If they had gone out searching for him, that would be one thing.
That would make a lot more sense than them just sitting on their asses waiting for Sonic to reappear.
And actually, you say they're helpless. They're worse than helpless, because Rotor here is being a hazard to himself by thinking about putting sewage on toast.
Remember, this plot point will come back later.
Oh my god.
Wait, sewage on toast?
Yes, we'll get to it this episode. I'll cover it.
I don't remember. It's been too long since I took these notes. Well, in any case, Sonic only kind of beats Evil Sonic. He just kind of lures him into the veterinary office and a bunch of just animals attack him.
Yeah, it's a pretty underwhelming defeat, I must say.
The power scaling doesn't make sense here, you guys. And yeah, Sonic gets from Goodbotnik. It's a magic vacuum cleaner to suck up all the muck, and everybody cheers for him, and they did nothing.
It's a fun story, though.
No, it is fun in a sort of absurd way. I do enjoy it.
Sure. Well, as someone who does like the Mirror Universe episodes of Star Trek, it does remind me of those.
That's absolutely $100% to the inspiration for it, by the way.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's obvious.
Well, Ken Penders literally wrote for Star Trek comics.
Oh really?
Yeah, I remember seeing a really creepy drawing he did of Worf's son at one point.
Oh, I'm gonna have to hunt that down.
They're around somewhere. Because I know that people obsessively archive Star Trek stuff even more than Sonic, so...
Oh god, yes.
Anyway, the rest of our issue is populated by mostly smaller stories. So our second story is Beat the Clock, written by Kantrovich and Penders, illustrated by Monic. Coconuts has the freedom fighters strapped to a bomb, and Sonic has to race against time to free them.
So the writers have decided to expand the short stories between the main ones for some reason.
Yeah, it kind of waters down the issue, to be honest. It's like we got kind of a main story here, with introducing Evil Sonic, who will of course become a recurring threat. But then the rest of it is just, it's like they took the gag pages and tried to tie them all together at once. Because I mean, you even have a children's placemat at the Denny's page where Sonic has like, oh, kids, you gotta draw through the maze to get me to my friends.
That's so
cute, actually.
There's one part in here where Sally gets like goo eyes for Sonic, and the commentary node at the bottom just shows up to say, true.
I have a note of that as well. That is, some of the commentary notes are like hilarious like that.
It's almost as good as ours. Yeah, but Sonic quotes Mighty Mouse when saving them, and then also name drops his own reference, which makes it even less cool.
It's not even the first time they referenced Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, anyway, Coconuts explodes, and I don't even know if we see him again for like 100 issues.
Good.
We didn't mention it, but it was interesting to see that at the beginning of the first issue, Sonic was just beating up Scratch. It's funny how the Adventure's mainstay robots are very much just, they get little parts in this comic, but the writers do not care about them that much, which is good.
Sonic beat up Grounder too at the start. You can just see that he's completely disassembled on that panel.
Oh, you're right, if you look closely.
So our third story for this issue is Food for Thought, written by Kantrovich and Penders, illustrated by Art Mawhinney. Sonic eats too many chili dogs and has a nightmare where his friends and enemies alike are sentient foods.
Oh boy.
Reading this felt like a fever dream.
This is an uncomfortable story. It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's like most of the characters just look like themselves just wearing costumes. Sonic is just in a chili dog suit, Sally is dressed as an ice cream cone, etc. Except for Tails. Tails is the scariest character in this whole thing because he is literally a container of french fries with a face.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the creepy, like, toothy smile on the Happy Meal mascot, if you guys have seen that.
What's his name from Aqua Teen Hunger Force?
Oh, Frylock? Is that his name?
Frylock. I haven't watched that show in so long. I'm pretty sure it's Frylock, though.
Yeah, and Robotnik is a burger. Everything else you could imagine about this is pretty much, what you expect. There's a lot of food puns, there's a lot of, just silly, weird little references, and as you might expect, this is all just another what-if story that Sonic literally imagined, and which does not say much about anything.
He had a literal fever dream from eating too many chili dogs.
Yeah, and when he wakes up, his first response is, I need to eat more chili dogs.
It's like a hangover. What's the best cure for a hangover? More alcohol.
Oof.
If you think about it, at the time at least, both these stories came off as just what-if stories that don't make any sense and don't matter. It's only in retrospect that the first one does not fall in that category.
Kinda true, yeah.
I suppose, but it's still an actual thing the character experienced.
Yeah.
Right, but it comes off almost like a what-if story because, or as far as people would have known at the time, it would never come up again.
I understand that, and that theme is going to become even stronger here in Sonic number 12, which has more stories like that. I don't have anything to say about the cover other than it's still not very funny.
I have something to say about the cover. I know it's just a joke here, but it's done seriously in other pieces of Sonic media. I hate the trope that, just because Sonic can run fast, they can do everything fast, which doesn't make any sense. First of all, just all of his muscles are just super fast. That doesn't make much sense. Second of all, even if that was the case, he would have to like practice every little skill. Even if he could move his hands super quickly, couldn't necessarily play the piano quickly. And I'm ranting about this too much, but it annoys me.
You see, Sonic can blink so fast that he can shoot concentrated pockets of air out of his eyes to blind people.
Sounds like something from a weird fan fiction.
Wait, that sounds very familiar, Devin.
I don't know why it would. I just made that up now.
Interesting.
It was very convincing.
It was.
Anyway. The first story of this issue is A Timely Arrival, written by Gallagher, illustrated by Mawini. A frustrated Robotnik sends Sonic back to prehistoric times, where he cooperates with Paleolithic freedom fighters to defeat their version of Robotnik, no matter how little sense that makes.
Hey, if you don't know about history, you're bound to repeat it.
If you don't know about writing, you're bound to make this.
That's also true.
See, double meaning, Devin. It's so many layers.
I hate to speed through this, but I have almost nothing to say about it. It's just shenanigans, like your average Adventures of Sonic or whatever. Except we've got Sonug the Bog Hog and Ivo Robotnik, which is like, you're taking away the core defining thing of the character, which is that he builds technology and robots. Like, okay, he builds a catapult, but there's even a panel where he says, this will be more fun when I get to invent robot slaves in 40,000 centuries. So it's like, you're literally acknowledging how pointless this all is.
Okay, but maybe this is just me. I thought that led to a pretty hilarious line where Robotnik says, it wouldn't matter if there were 100 of them, for I, the wicked and evil Ivo Robotnik, will destroy all bog hogs with my primitive machine.
It is technically a machine. Just,
I know, but it's like the freedom fighters build catapults like this themselves.
Not the freedom fighters of that time. They just hide underground and cower.
You shut up. You're being too apologetic here.
I don't know. All these silly stories, I read them like 20 times when I was younger, so maybe I'm biased.
Well, and that's the thing is that, you say, oh, you started with Archives Volume 6 as a kid. I started with Archives Volume 3, which I think contained this issue. It certainly contained both Evil Sonic and Pseudo Sonic, so it's like, it's not that I don't get it. Maybe it's just that I don't remember it very well, because I definitely didn't read it that many times, because most of it was stuff that I checked out from the local library is what it is. And so, like, sitting on my shelf, I've got, like, volumes, like, 0, 7, and 9 or something like that.
Sitting on my shelf are all the Sonic Archive volumes.
I know, because you're, like, a based Chad, and I'm, an incel wimp or something. I don't know.
Sitting on my shelf is a copy of Sonic 06.
Oh, you beat both of us.
Lauren, you have Sonic 06.
It's not on my shelf, though.
Okay, fair enough.
For a second I thought I had 2 copies of it, actually.
Oh, man.
Unfortunately,
almost annihilated us.
Unfortunately, I don't. I'll have to get my girlfriend's PS3 copy.
You don't have to. Why would you do that?
Halo doesn't want it, I don't think.
I know, but what would you use it for? You don't need another copy of that. You barely need 1 copy of that game.
It's for the memes, Devin.
You just build a throne out of copies of Sonic 06?
I will own every copy in existence.
Most regal throne. Oh, man. What? That would be insane.
The thing is, Bruce, that's a lot of copies because Sonic 06 still sold really well.
It did sell well. Hey, that's enough to maybe build a room.
Oh, God. We need to move to the next story before this gets out of hand. Our second story of this issue is The Bold-Headed Eagle, written by Kantrovich and Penders, illustrated by Mawini. Sonic helps the last eagle on Mobius learn to fly again and reunite with his family, so he wouldn't be the last one, but I guess they didn't know that when they said it, so...
Sonic starts this episode? Sure, episode. Almost dying. I don't know
was
why,
he not looking where he was going?
Sonic doesn't seem like the type to really pay attention where he's running half the time.
I guess in Sonic Heroes he starts off like running backwards at like 200 miles an hour, so...
Exactly, there you go. I don't have much to say about this story.
It follows most of the plot beats that you would expect. Sonic meets this old eagle whose name is Cyril, which, bummer for that one. And he's like, oh, I'm the last eagle on Mobius, I can't fly. But then it turns out he's not the last one, and Robotnik attacks with a robot ram.
I don't know if this has been done in any of the other issues, or any of the other stories, but I like that Robotnik decides he needs to come to meet Sonic in a fucking costume.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of
I,
urban
that
costumes.
that was really fun. I hope that happens again. I'm expecting it not to though.
It will, actually. Well, that'll be a theme.
Okay.
I don't know
Okay.
why he's dressed like that. I don't know what the theme is.
Mountains. He's a Swiss or Austrian or whatever. They're the same basically.
You're just killing it with the hot takes every single episode. Like, people are gonna kill you for saying a thing like that.
I think before we started the podcast, I joked about wanting to be the heel of the podcast, and maybe I took that too much to heart.
No, do more of it.
Controversy.
You want to have that many
breeds
copies of
viewership.
Sonic 06? You better be the guy who likes Sonic 06.
I'm gonna fucking my notes for Sonic 06 are gonna be nothing but positives.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, that reverse psychology, it leads well into the final story of this issue. The Lynx is a Jinx. Written by DeCesare, illustrated by Mawini, Sonic befriends Larry Lynx, who is seemingly plagued by innate bad luck, causing tensions in the Freedom Team, who get injured and captured by Robotnik. However, when Sonic puts his faith in Larry to help save the gang, he discovers the bad luck can be manipulated to affect Robotnik's goons as well.
This is such a terrifying ability. Like, Larry Lynx is a menace, especially when Sonic is able to turn it around. Now, you may think, I'm looking into this too deeply, oh, it's just a silly one-off character. He's not a one-off character, though.
Of course not.
It's like it's a passive like manipulation of probability is what it is.
I see that so often on the internet where it's like, oh, this is the best power. I'm like, yeah, because it's just every power. It's the cop-out power.
It really
Yes.
is.
Yes, and well, that would be why they don't let him control it, is because it would make this story that is kind of on one leg already, would make it even less interesting. But I actually did like this story as a kid, just because I was like, huh, that's funky. Maybe it's because he's one of the first comic exclusive characters that's not kind of hideous. He's not especially crazy looking, but he's just a cat.
He's just a cat. Yeah.
Bubsy.
My only note
Bubsy.
on this, other than the character himself in this story, is at the end, to prove that Larry has broken their unlucky streak, he beats Rotor a bunch of times in chess. Do you know what chess is touted for? For being a game with absolutely no random elements.
Right.
Yeah, luck
very
doesn't matter
true.
in chess.
Yeah.
It would have been really easy to just have him play poker, but they chose chess for some reason.
Well, the random element in chess is just the way your opponent thinks, and that's not really exactly random.
What gets to me is that the idea communicated is that Larry's bad luck ends up becoming good luck by the end, but that's not what it is. Is that it's just that shit just goes unexpectedly around him. Like that's what it felt like it was communicating before. And so if you have to start relying on that and start using it for petty shit, then it shouldn't work.
Yeah, well, it's like Sonic somehow is able to like manipulate it. I don't know how that works, but he's like, oh, we just gotta. He says it very matter-of-factly, as if it's a common sense that if you've got someone who's cursed to have bad luck, you can just turn it around if you trick the curse.
It's like the opposite of a story about having confidence in yourself. Normally a story like this would be, he fucks up because he's too down on himself, but no, he's correct to be down on himself because he is literally cursed.
Yeah, that very much is the shape of the story, though.
Sonic number 13. I like on the cover how they have, their usual just whatever Sonic cover, and there's just a teeny tiny blurb in the bottom right that says, in this issue, Knuckles from Sega's Sonic 3.
Yeah, you think they really want to make that a big,
Yeah, I think you were honestly, Devin, I think it was you who said that they just had a bunch of like stock covers that they cycled through.
Oh, that wouldn't make sense, yeah.
Yeah, they could have just pasted that blurb on top of it. That said, the blurb is not lying, because the story for this issue is This Island Hedgehog, written by Kantrovich and Penders, and yes, the first Knuckles story is written by Penders, illustrated by Monarch. Sonic and Tails travel to the mysterious Angel Island and have to deal with the traps of both Robotnik and newcomer rival Knuckles the Echidna, whom Robotnik has tricked into believing Sonic and Tails are thieves. There's a lot of just weirdness with this, like, Tails is suddenly a pilot and they suddenly have a plane, which is not the Tornado, it just says Sonic F on it, and they're just, they're just going to Angel Island because there's no Death Egg, there's no Well, there's no Supersonic, obviously. But it's funny because this is the Sonic 3 adaptation. We will also later have the Sonic and Knuckles adaptation because the game came out split in half. And hilariously, the Sonic and Knuckles adaptation also does not have the Death Egg, which became its own 4-part miniseries later on.
Yeah, so they wanted to do just part of it. They didn't want to commit to the whole shebang, kind of like with...
Well, they couldn't, because they only had the
Pinball.
game to go off of.
Right, well, they didn't even cover all of Sonic 3.
Yeah, they really
Yeah,
only
fair.
covered, like, what, the beginning of it, I guess?
Pretty much. There's a little bit of Hydro City in there.
You mean
But I
Hydrocity?
We're not doing this.
But I think, given they wanted to just do a little bit, it comes off pretty nicely.
I
Yeah.
especially like the opening joke where Knuckles says, "Time to roll out the unwelcome mat." And he has, which this is a great callback for our show, he has a surface-to-air missile, just like Bruce didn't expect him to in Sonic Underground. And it's literally
Yeah.
a fist holding an unwelcome mat that destroys their plane.
I really want that unwelcome mat.
Just for your
I'm
own...
sure, yeah, just for, like, outside the house, for the front door,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure someone makes one.
Yeah, so the pacing of this comic is, of course, very fast. They have a working plane for exactly one panel. They explore Angel Island for exactly one panel. They see Fire Breath for... Well, okay, they see him for one panel. They get attacked by him for about 3. And Sonic has one of Sonic 3's elemental shields for exactly one panel. It just appears.
Are you
Okay.
sure that's not the Insta-Shield?
I
Well,
guess
so-
I don't know.
Here's something you should
Yeah.
explain to me. What is the Insta-Shield? I never really gave it much thought, to be honest. I'm just like, oh yes, Sonic can just make a temporary shield around themselves. No explanations. I never needed
Yeah.
one.
I
But I
thought it was
realized there is
Sonic
none.
spinning so fast for a split second that just like a big burst of like wind comes out of him and reflects stuff. That's what I thought it was.
I guess that makes sense, but I could see it being interpreted as this instead. I mean, shield.
I suppose. Well, it's like and it's hard to tell because the writers, Ken Penders literally prides himself over the fact that he doesn't play Sonic games. So however
What?
much he was working off of here, it could be neither of those things.
Wait a minute, that's a new dimension. That's a new fact that I didn't realize. Ken Penders
Oh.
has never played a Sonic game.
I don't know
I've
if he's
heard
ever
that-
played any video game.
I've heard that from you before, Devin. But my thing is I'm confused why he's proud of it.
Yeah, that's the bit that really gets me.
It's gonna be a whole thing. Basically, he considers video games to be, if not art at all, then at least a lesser form of art, and he thinks that
Okay.
in Pender's
One of
mind,
those.
the comic book version of these events are the real versions.
Ah.
Anyway, we're not gonna dwell on it. I really don't want to get too much into Pender's bashing this early.
Yeah, that's fair.
So anyway, so Sonic and Tails, they get washed through the underwater ruins area, and eventually just kidnapped by Knuckles, who I guess his character trait is giving big speeches in this issue, because he almost always speaks in several sentences in a single panel. And he's very like, oh, you're coming for my Chaos Emerald. And this is where it becomes really weird, because as we saw in one of our previous episodes, Chaos Emeralds are cheap in Archie. Sonic just finds them lying around.
That's
But
true,
here's
yeah.
Also an ancient relic that's an important part of the island, so...
When Robotnik obtains it, he really hypes it up. He says, "At last, all the forces of the universe in one bright, shiny green jewel," and it's like, wow. But then doesn't do anything. Man, just so many vibes I'm getting from Underground, which is very strange. This feels like a Sonic Underground adaptation of Sonic 3, kind of.
No, because if it were Sonic Underground, then Knuckles would immediately try to cannibalize Sonic and Tails.
Oh, yeah, okay, I had to take me a second.
Yeah, but the treatment of the Chaos Emeralds is going to continue being weird. Maybe I'll say that treating them like they're important is better than having them be completely cheap. It's just not consistent.
Sure. Typically in the comics, actually, I think, if I remember the way it goes on, we'll have to see for sure, the emeralds are actually treated as very easy to obtain, however, still ridiculously powerful.
Yeah, maybe there should be legislation about those.
Oh my gosh. God.
I don't think
Jesus
Chaos Emeralds are
Christ.
ever used as a metaphor for gun control.
Oh my
No, they just end up
god.
using real guns for that when they get to that.
Uh, uh,
But I do like sort of Knuckles' personality here, where he says, you know, you guys can leave if you want, but if you're here for like 10 minutes longer, I am going to punch you.
Eventually, Knuckles catches on, of course, that Eggman has duped him, and then surprisingly just becomes friends instantly with Sonic and Tails. And it's weird because at the end it's like, is Knuckles friend or foe? And I'm like, there really doesn't seem to be much question at the end there. He's very cooperative.
Yeah, no, he was led astray. It's like, what do you want?
The one thing that's weird is that he's like, oh yeah, I picked up the pieces of your plane when you two were knocked out. Which, why would he do that if at the time he considered them enemies still?
He likes planes.
I say it again. It's like Underground. He has a plane. He likes planes. Must be it.
Knuckles is a plane kid. Are plane kids actually things, or is that train kid?
I remember JJ the jet plane, which was like an even more terrifying version of Thomas the Tank Engine.
I think it's the same universe.
You're lying!
I don't have a response to that. Let's talk more about a different kind of vehicle, namely a space shuttle, with our second issue of the story, and by that I mean story of the issue, Space in Yo Face, written by DeCesare and illustrated by Mawini, and I did not write a summary for this one. That's weird.
Do you remember what happens?
Well, I mean, they steal Robotnik's spaceship and they go to space, but then Robotnik follows them to space and they gotta do battle.
Yes.
We got a Sonic...
sums it up.
We got a Sonic 3 adaptation with no Death Egg, but now we have a spaceship shaped like Robotnik's face that isn't the Death Egg.
Well, it's weird because they're like, yes, it's going to roboticize everything from the sky, which is literally what the Death Egg does in Sonic the Comic.
Oh yeah.
And in Archie. Yeah, so we've got a story set in space here, but I would say this one feels a little more grounded. Like they don't do anything that's like completely out of the blue. It's like the dialogue is still very cheesy and newspaper comic-y, and there's still weirdness like how, oh, there's 100 moons that orbit Mobius, which that gets retconned to hell and back. So yeah, they land on a mud planet, basically.
So this is where the return of Rotor's taste for muck. I want to say it's Mega Muck because it looks like Mega Muck.
Oh, okay.
Comes back because he serves it to the Freedom Fighters afterwards. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what the hell?
Interesting. That's...
I don't understand.
I'm looking at the last panel here. It's not literally the same stuff as was on the planet.
No, but it's supposed to look like it, and I don't know, Rotor developed a taste for it.
Yeah, it's gruel.
It's fucking depression food.
I actually like Robotnik's spaceship because it's, you know, it transforms into a big robot, but it doesn't have arms.
Yeah.
Who needs arms when you've got big legs?
Who needs arms with legs like these? Yeah,
I wasn't even trying to make that joke.
Sonic again, like Lauren was saying, you know, he demonstrates his incredible skill at things with speed that, you know, is like, that's not just a thing of speed, is that he's apparently also an expert craftsman. I guess we see this at the start of the story, where he's, you know, building or cutting a wooden sculpture of Antoine, which is like, I don't know how that works, you know, the dexterity you need is pretty crazy, but it's cartoon, whatever. But that's how he beats Robotnik, is that he makes a giant, sculpts a mountain of mush into a Robotnik.
Yeah, and then Robotnik cannot help but admire it. That was pretty good.
His hubris is really his downfall.
And, yeah, silly little story, kind of fun.
I do like the, this would be like pulp era of science fiction aesthetics.
Alright, well, let's continue into, number 14 here. Which has Tails spray painting his name on the cover and Sonic being like, oh, you gotta clean this shit up. And I don't know why, because Sonic seems like absolutely the kind of guy who would be in favor of Tails spray painting his name on things. I mean, the ending theme to Sonic Frontiers is literally called Vandalize, so Sonic should be in favor of this.
I mean, they say other things in that ending theme.
Because way back in Archie Sonic the Hedgehog issue 14, they were thinking about Ah, yes. Many, many, many years from now, there will be a video game that will be made.
Dave Monach is like secretly a huge like J-Rock fan. The first story here, Tails' Taste of Power, written by the Array, illustrated by Mawini. When taking care of exotic plants, Tails eats the fruit of the Tree of Wisdom and gains hyper-intelligence.
This story kind of pushed me the wrong way.
Is it because of the weird plant with the lips that keeps kissing Sonic?
Okay, that's also strange. No, it's the whole idea of Tails eating the fruit. Because I thought it was going to be an explanation of, oh, well, Tails is supposed to be like the smart engineer. So
this is how they get there, right?
Exactly, but it isn't. And that's
Nope.
A, stupid, and B, they just turn Tails into an asshole for 24 hours.
Yeah, if you're smart, you're also a jerk. That's the rule.
I'm all right. A good thing I'm not that smart.
To be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to be Tails the Fox.
Damn it.
Got him.
But yeah, it's a completely ironic in hindsight issue because Tails is supposed to be really smart, but they don't keep that. Maybe they like retcon it that like he's smart later, and so this is why. I don't think that matters.
I'm expecting eventually just Tails' engineering prowess just starts coming out and they never actually explain it.
Tails has become like one of us. He has eaten the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil.
Oh no. So, yes, Tails gets smart and becomes mean, and does various things to prove their smartness, including best the Shredder from SatAM, which I did not remember was in the comics, so that was cool to see.
Yes, it's got a different color scheme, but that is to the letter the same robot.
Okay, that's why I didn't recognize it. It's the color scheme.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that. I forgot to mention it when we first saw his work, but Art Mawini was a storyboarder for SatAM, which is part of the reason that his drawings are better.
Okay, that does explain a lot.
But yeah, so Tails also builds like a cleaning robot that it has a special metal that Robotnik can't detect apparently. And he's like, I am the best. And everyone's like, really? And he's like, yes, I'm going to go defeat Robotnik. And then conveniently, it wears off just at the worst possible timing, the smartness. And so then Sonic has to come save him like every time, which would normally annoy me, except Sonic is actually the genius in this story. Because he comes up with the perfect bluff. He was paying attention when Tails said, yes, this metal Robotnik can't scan. And so Tails made like a cool little I'm the best metal. Out of the same metal. And then Sonic is like, yes, Robotnik. Tails came on a suicide mission, and this is actually a bomb. And Robotnik's like, no, you're bluffing. Scan it, Snively. And then Snively's like, I'm sorry, sir. I can't actually tell what it is. You could be telling the truth. And then he pushes it. He's like, I'm going to do it. And then Robotnik gives in. And it's a surprisingly satisfying victory from these comics, I must say.
It's nice to show, because a lot of Sonic's solutions in the comics so far has just been go fast, eat ass. This is actually showing that he has plenty of ingenuity himself to figure out plan.
And even for Robotnik, this is an acceptable loss, because I mean it's just Tails, so it's like whatever. I don't want to risk this.
Yeah. The one loss is that in the frame when Sonic is holding up the metal, one of his arms is colored correctly, and the other one is blue. How do you mess that up?
Deadlines.
I guess.
So yeah, bit of a weird story. Good bits mixed in with an overall atmosphere of like,
Tails deserves better.
No, 100%.
Yes, he does. And our second story, I'm doing big air quotes with my fingers for this fit. The second story of this issue is Do It Yourself Sonic, which is allegedly written by Mike Kantrovich and Ken Penders and illustrated by Dave Monach, but it's not really written, because this is a 3-page long comic with no dialogue. And I don't mean that it has no dialogue, I mean that it has spots where dialogue would be, where there is instead nothing. And so we made 2 versions of this just for fun. We collaborated on one, and then I did one myself, and that'll be going up on the channel around the same time as this. It's, I don't even know what to make of this, to be honest. we had fun making it, but it's like
It
also
did.
completely lazy that you would just make this with no dialogue. I can't help but just imagine Penders sitting at his desk being like, ah, crap, the issue comes out in like, 3 days and we have nothing. Here, let's just steal some Monarch art and just, it's like, it doesn't have speech bubbles because I forgot to script it, so I'll just write in, we'll make Sonic tell you how to do it. I don't know. It just feels there to fill pages. If they had done a whole Sonic do-it-yourself book, that would have, like, I would have gotten
Would have
that
been
better.
fun.
Yeah.
I still don't think it's bad fan interaction though. It's
No,
just
it's not bad. It's too harsh to call it lazy. It's just, it feels
right.
a little eh.
It's fun fan interaction. It could have been done better. Again, I think there should have been like have one of the writers just fill it all out.
That's the thing, is that if it's not lazy, then, that means that they did at some point write dialogue for this, and I want to know what that
Right.
dialogue was.
Well,
Right.
you can see part of the first page when Sonic holds it up. The text is small, but you can read it. Crabmeat says, "Aye, aye, Skipper," to Robotnik for some reason.
Huh, I guess you're right. Well, then I want to see the rest of it. I know it's going to not be as good as ours, but
It's not going to be funny or anything, but like it's
maybe
going.
Sonic
It's
kills
still
a whole truckload of cops. Who knows?
I need to ask the question at the end of the do-it-yourself. There's a Sonic saying, "Hey, send in your do-it-yourself comics." I need to know: do they actually show up in other issues?
Yes, we do see the fan submissions.
Okay, good. That's all.
All right. Our final story, written by Kantrovich and Penders, illustrated by Mawini, is Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. Robotnik attempts to capture Bunny and Sally, believing them to be weaker because they're women. He is subsequently proven very wrong.
It's the classic. I can't word it correctly. They tried to like be like, see, we're not sexist, but they were sexist by trying to be not sexist.
It's a bit. I think you're saying it's a bit patronizing, is what it is.
There you go. Yeah, that's okay.
It's a very girls rock of the '90s comic.
Oh yeah.
I kind of don't mind it just because it's like, it's whatever, for 1994, it's like to have like that's not a brave thing to make in like a children's show in 2022,
Not
but
really.
in the 90s, it's like, because I grew up a misogynistic child. I was a bit of a shithead. So it's like,
at least you admit that.
I probably could have used something like this. When I'm talking like elementary school. Okay, I'm not. I was not punching women in high school. Actually, I never punched anybody. I just like the idea of that being the expression of misogyny, because that's the adolescent mindset.
I find it interesting also. This is more the way my brain works. For some reason, reading this story made me think back to way back. I think it was in the miniseries, or was it like in issue 1, where we have Robotnik's desk and it just has all of his titles on it. And for some reason, my brain just decided misogynist was on there. As far as I know, it wasn't, but
well, this is how we can get into the Robotnik and feminism discussion, because the Sonic Heroes manual lists Robotnik as being a feminist, but my understanding of this, because I don't speak Japanese, my understanding of this is that feminista in Japanese is more akin to saying just I love women, as in I am infatuated with them. Which is kind of the opposite.
It's a translation error. That makes a lot more sense. I always wondered about, or ever since you brought that to my attention, I'd wondered about that.
So chauvinism is a concrete part of his personality. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be, but it certainly is at this point.
I reject your statements, even if they are fact, because it disagrees with my favorite headcanon, which is that he was sexist for a while, but then he got beat up, and then he became a feminist because he realized that his worldview was wrong.
And that's right. The only way to remove your headcanon is with a melon baller or a power drill.
So I've been researching this, and as it turns out, all of us are wrong. Feminist, or feministo, is just as commonly used to refer to actual women's rights advocates as you may expect in Japan. But we've also misread the secondary meaning, which is more along the lines of chivalry, or just being particularly polite to women, sort of a gentlemanly quality. And that does fit with Eggman's personality in the games, as compared to the American comics and TV shows, where he is indeed a bit more chauvinistic. What's even weirder is that the Japanese Sonic Heroes manual contains none of this. It's not even a mistranslation. The only use of the word feministo in reference to Dr. Eggman comes from his bio on the Japanese website for Sonic X, which I guess somehow, some way, the US manual for Heroes must have cribbed from. I'm not sure how deep this rabbit hole goes, but I gotta get out now before something terrible happens.
This is our first Sally and Bunny, like, wholly girl-centric story, which is, you know, at least we have that, you know, it's like, I wish we would get a few more of those, and that our sole exposure to them was not, you know, whether they be demeaned or not. But, I like Sally and Bunny both, you know. Sally is, you know, she's competent, she's capable, she's not just, like, you know, being angry at someone, you know? It comes off better than her previous experiences so far.
I will give it that, I agree.
Yeah, fair.
Although they are lured in by a women be shopping thing by Robotnik, so it cuts both ways, I suppose.
So on a different note, is it just me who looked at the way crab meat was drawn in this story, and he just looked off a little bit somehow?
It's got a tongue.
Yeah, that it's.
Either way, that jumped out at me. So there.
So yeah, I weird little story, a little bit fun. It's all right. It's, you know, it's another ironic in hindsight story, because I don't think that Sally or Bunny is going to be nearly this active for the majority of the older run of the comics.
Our final issue of this episode is Sonic the Hedgehog
number 15.
And gosh, what a wonderful cover this is.
I want that I heart to pollute pen.
This is just so, like, it perfectly encapsulates this version of Robotnik. It's wonderful.
It does, yeah.
Yeah,
I like it. It's fun.
It's gritty. It's full of pollution. He's got a weird, like, kind of incomprehensible expression that's not really even a smile.
I feel like this cover makes me feel like if I owned this issue in real life, it would feel like slimy or like oily.
Yeah, your brain would make it feel that way.
Exactly.
This was the one owned by the greasy kid at school, yeah.
Oh, not the greasy kid.
The
poor greasy kid.
He knew not what he wrought. The first story of this issue is Rockin' the Bot, written by Cesare, illustrated by Monarch. After saving a magical frog from a landslide, Sonic obtains magical stones that imbue special powers on the holder. So this is, what, 3 for our count of different types of magic rocks?
Yeah, why did we need more magic rocks?
Because gimmick of the issue, that's why.
You see, I could take that if this were a cartoon that we're selling toys, but this is a comic selling, I guess, comics.
I think there was some amount at some point of SatAM merchandise for the Freedom Fighters, but nothing like this, certainly.
Right. And I'm assuming, as far as I know, that there's basically no merchandise for the comic.
No, I think the most of that any Sonic comic exclusive stuff has ever gotten is like there's some Tangle and Whisper merchandise here in, you know, the year 2022.
Right. Well, I think that happened because they were in one of the mobile games more. Also,
it's just because Sega's hands are more on the IDW series than they ever were on Archie.
And they also seem like they're very popular characters as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, Sonic saves a frog, he gets some magic stones, and this is the most infuriating thing for me, is that he just for some reason assumes they're not going to work, which is completely baffling to me, because you've come across so many magic objects.
I didn't think about that, but you're right. You just can't believe that a frog could be the source.
What you got against frogs, Sonic?
Yeah, man, what the hell? Fucking
Dursite.
Yeah, that's one thing, is he doesn't believe them. Another thing is that I find it a little unbelievable that Sonic would be so intimidated by, there's this giant beetle bot that Robotnik builds, that he's like, oh, this is the end. I have to potentially throw away my life, on these rocks that I don't believe could be magical, because it's my only chance. Like, no, he could just zip around real fast, cut that thing to ribbons, easy peasy.
Yeah, he's done that with other giant robots. I don't know why this one is different.
Yeah. It also changes its color scheme. It's purple on the first page, and then turns brown for the rest of the story.
It is. That's odd.
But yeah, like the powers they give her, what? Elasticity is one of them.
Which, the elasticity doesn't really look like elasticity. It just looks like it turns them into goop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The yellow one is what? Springiness? Yeah.
Jump super far.
Yeah.
The green one is strength, and were there only 3 of them, or were there 4?
There's 3.
But it's funny, because, like, you get these cool stones, right? And 2 of them are wasted, because he's just trying to find the strength stone, doesn't remember which one it is. So it's like, you made these cool stones, you didn't even use most of them.
I mean, he used the first one kind of for its intended purpose.
By accident, but yes.
Yeah, no, it's... no, it's dumb. The only thing that I really like about this story is that, you know, after all this, at the end, Sonic is just rooting through more frogs, being like, hey, can you give me more of those?
Yeah.
Even Sonic understands he fucking wasted them.
And it's funny, because after we get all this frog searching, the next story is called What's the Big Idea? Which makes me think, is Big the Cat gonna get introduced? No.
You're a couple of years too early.
A couple, like 7, yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, what's the big idea? I wasn't even sure how much of a summary I should include for this one, because it's like 4 pages long. But it's basically Rotor is locked in his room for a long time, and the Freedom Fighters are just speculating on what he could be working on in there. And all of their ideas for inventions are completely ridiculous.
I, for one, would not eat glow-in-the-dark popcorn.
No, that seems dangerous.
Yeah, I want to know, why was that guess?
Actually, why would you want glow-in-the-dark popcorn? If you go to a movie, that's just going to be distracting.
That's very true.
So I assume the theory is the room is dark, so you can't see the popcorn. But the screen lights up the room.
Yeah, it's like just being on your phone.
Yeah.
But what Rotor actually invented was a thermos, which they all call useless. What did the writers have against thermoses?
They all have stock in, what's the opposite of thermos?
What do you mean, what's the opposite of thermos?
I'm trying to figure out the opposite of a thermos is and say they have stock in a company that makes those.
The opposite of a thing that you put food in and it keeps it warm or cold is a thing that you don't put in and doesn't keep it warm and cold, which is called nothing.
Oh, so it's the floor.
Yeah, they have stock in the absence of thermoses.
There you go.
The only possible implication I could get from all this is maybe, like, they've got so much advanced technology on both Robotnik and the Freedom Fighters side, I don't know even what's supposed to be remarkable about this, when it's like, that's already a thing that kids would know what it is. So the
maybe
only
this
implication
wasn't
I get is that
that
this is actually a secret lore comic, because the reinvention of thermoses is something that would otherwise be significant. You know, like this.
Oh, come on, Finn. There's nothing to worry about. Think about it. I don't know any Banana Man, and rocket ships haven't been reinvented yet.
Whatever. This has been a very whatever episode.
Well, because all these stories have been kind of, all of except for a couple, have been very whatever.
Yeah. Speaking of which, our final story for this issue is Animal Magnetism, written by DeCesare, illustrated by Mawini. The Freedom Fighters come under fire by a giant magnet machine developed by Robotnik. That's it. It's one sentence of summary.
Yeah.
Bunny has her extendo legs, at least.
It's nice to see the extendo legs, and I like the way she's using them at the beginning.
Yeah.
True.
It's kind of cute. Bunny definitely seems like she would kind of, she would definitely want to protect Tails. I don't know, like glom onto him.
She's like an older sister figure. I like her.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all the Freedom Fighters are very much like older sibling characters to Tails, I guess. But Bunny definitely seems like she would like want to be like that.
Yeah, she would make an effort at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they just kind of dicking around as usual. They're having another... I'm sorry, it's not a picnic. It's an outdoor barbecue, which is different from the picnic, because the picnic is yearly.
It's a barbecue because it has now become a running gag, as Rotor is like, okay, I know you guys don't like muck, but what about barbecued muck? And I'm all for this. I don't know how long this goes on, but this is great.
He's like a guy that's like really obsessively into tofu.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. So I've got two things I want to mention about this. A, for being freedom fighters that are supposed to be fighting, for freedom, they spend a lot of their time just fucking around.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about this during the camping episode of Sat AM. And
Right.
it was that, in that case, I was like, oh, why are they doing this instead of fighting Robotnik? But throughout most of that show, they had very little downtime. Almost every episode, they were in life-threatening peril. Whereas
Right.
with this, almost every comic starts with them doing something other than fighting Robotnik. And Robotnik is just an incidental thing that happens to interrupt them.
Right. And my other thing is, kind of seems counterproductive for Robotnik to make the metal that people are roboticized into magnetic. Like, there's plenty of non-magnetic metal.
Yeah, and considering he wants them to do work in his factories and such, which absolutely need magnets for some things.
Exactly. So, he probably does consider the roboticized people disposable. If they die on the job, he doesn't really care.
So I think this is really, we've reached sort of an apex point here where these plots have gotten like really threadbare, it feels like. Maybe it's just the fact that they're trying to do 3 stories in an issue.
Yeah, it does really feel like they should be sticking to either one story if they really want to split it up into 2 parts, or do 2 stories.
Yeah, well, I think that for next time, that is actually going to start being a pattern. Because next time we're going to be talking about Sonic 16, 17, 18, 19, and not 20, because we actually get to do our first Sonic comic special next time, which is, sounds very interesting. Well, your mileage may vary on how interesting the story itself may be. I really don't remember, but, yeah, that's it. Again, with these episodes that end like a wet fart, it's like, what do I even say?
Man, wouldn't it be funny if some writers came along and were like, this is a great comic series, but I think it needs a lot more weirdness, a lot more in-depth stuff, a lot more like weird allegories.
Symbolism,
That'd be funny.
religious imagery.
I wonder if that'll ever happen.
Yeah, that would be real
Political
fun.
commentary, racism. It's all happening next time, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to contact us, we are available at deepdivezonepod@gmail.com or at deepdivezone on Twitter. If you like this video, make sure to comment, subscribe, and share. And we will see you next week. You dumb idiots who suck. Bye.